All right, so Ethan Klein has got himself into some trouble once again. What a surprise. Who could have seen this coming? It's so predictable. I think it's like literally every podcast at this point. You know exactly what's going to happen. He says something, he upsets half of his fans. They complain about it on his subreddit. And then he always goes on his podcast the next day and starts talking about how his fans are annoying and they're taking things too seriously and they need to stop getting offended. And if they're offended, they should stop listening. And then they usually bring on a caller, like one of the fans, to try to explain how Ethan was offensive. And, they try to get him to admit that he was wrong or he shouldn't have said something, but it usually just makes things 10 times worse, and his fans get even more upset with him. It's crazy. He has to spend like 5-10 minutes every podcast complaining about his fans. It's awesome to watch. But unfortunately for him, on his podcast the other day, he took things a little too far, and he actually ended up having to apologize to his fans because so many people were offended by him. He posted a tweet that we'll get into later, but I think it'll be interesting to see if he actually apologizes on his podcast or uploads a video to his personal channel talking about it or something, because that's kind of what he did last week when his fans got offended by his Will Smith comments. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles this, because he usually doesn't apologize like this on Twitter or really apologize at all. Like I said, his fans call him out on things all the time, and he rarely apologizes from what I've seen, or like a sincere apology. Usually it's just like, all right, whatever, fine. You guys are sensitive, I'll apologize. Like usually it's very reluctant. All right, so now let's get into what Ethan had to apologize for. And let me just set it up really quick. They're talking about James Charles, I think, because he bought diapers, I guess. They figured that out. So Ethan's making fun of him, of course. And, this is a dangerous territory for Ethan because it seems like he just loves to talk about gay sex and he loves to joke around about it. And most of the time it's, usually people can consider what he's saying homophobic. Like one of the jokes he always makes is if he's watching some alpha male or like some red pill person like Jordan Peterson, he always makes fun of those people by saying that they're secretly gay and they'd love to take a dick in the ass or they love to be a power bottom or something like that. And he's been making this joke for like a year now probably, and his fans have called him out for it, but he obviously doesn't really want to listen to him and he doesn't care. But now with what happened the other day, he's gonna have to start to care because he upset a lot of people, and a lot of people are talking about this. And it's funny because he acts like this all the time. Like this is nothing new with what Ethan's doing in this video. But I think what really hurt him here is the way he talked to one of his fans who called in. And it is really awkward. This is cringy stuff right here. So let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump right into it. So here we go. Ethan Klein, the woke liberal SJW who spends most of the time on his podcast virtue signaling and calling everyone else out for being too offensive. This is what he's up to.
He has some anal leaking. Now, we were saying, well, if he's getting blasted in the ass hard enough, potentially, you may need to wear a diaper. And a lot of you will say, like, okay, we've had a debate, like, I don't think vaginas increase in size from sex, but assholes actually do. If you have a lot of anal sex, you can actually blast open your anus. Frequent anal sex can result in a blasted open asshole. Maybe he's just got railed real hard the night before. He's a power bottom.
No,
That's an option, power bottom.
So wouldn't that mean that the diapers aren't for him, though?
No, if he's on the bottom, he's getting railed. That he's an enthusiastic receiver. Oh my God.
So he's gay.
Power bottom is a guy who likes to wildly ride the peg of another dude.
What are you saying that?
Power bottom is a guy who likes to wildly ride the peg of another dude while he jacks you off until both have bone orgasms. Yeah.
Get down to the power bottom of things here on the A Street Podcast.
All right, so I don't know why Ethan thinks it's a good idea to be talking about this stuff so much. I feel like somebody should step in, like his producer or one of the employees should be like, dude, it's probably not the best idea to be talking about like gay sex and everything because you're gonna say something that is offensive for sure, because Ethan thinks it's hilarious and he loves talking about it. I remember with Nick Ocado, he was saying some pretty graphic stuff about him and like his ass and everything, and Nick Ocado got like freaked out by it. So he's got to be careful with this stuff. I don't know how people just let him go off like this, especially when he's talking about James Charles, because he's going to have no filter, because you can say whatever you want about James Charles. No one's going to care. But obviously there's still things that are off limits, which is probably talking about this stuff. You probably shouldn't get this personal. All right, so this next part is when they're already getting kind of annoyed with the fans, and somebody says that they should have somebody that's part of the LGBTQ plus community on their staff, so they have like a different perspective or something. And Ethan and Dan are already telling this person to shut up.
I love you guys so much, but y'all really need some LGBTQT.
Why?
Shut up.
What did I say wrong?
Shut up.
Colin, if you have a problem with my character,
You got it right. I mean, you literally got it right.
What power bottom was.
Yeah. Shut up. You don't know anything about her sexuality, anyways. The fuck do you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
How dare you
Assuming.
assume that none of us are
You don't know shit.
LGBTQ plus? How dare you assume that?
So I think one of the worst parts about this show and Ethan is the fact that he loves to talk about everyone else. He loves to get in everyone else's business and criticize them for being offensive or doing something wrong or not being a good person or whatever. And he gives them no breaks. It's always like full force. Like, this person is sexist, racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and there's no excuses. But then when it comes to him and people criticizing him for the same things that he criticizes everyone else for, he doesn't want to listen to it. He thinks they're too sensitive. It's his show. If you're too offended, just don't watch. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if you unsubscribe. He tells people to unsubscribe all the time. And it's funny because some of his fans give him a pass whenever he does something wrong or says something offensive. And they're like, yeah, we know he didn't mean anything bad by it. He's a good person and everything. But I think it's funny because why is he a good person? Because he calls everyone else out. Like, people say he changed and he's learned and now he's like aware of what's politically correct and everything. But the only thing he does is call other people out. He's still just as offensive as he used to be. He just stopped saying the N-word and the F-word. But other than that, I feel like he's still saying really offensive stuff. And for the most part, he doesn't care what people think about it. He's just like, stop watching if you're offended. I can do whatever I want. This is a comedy show. But everyone else, they need to listen to my rules. And I need to call them out for being too offensive. And it's so annoying hearing Ethan complain about his audience. Because of course they're doing these things. Like, this is what you want them to do, basically. Like, I don't understand this at all. Like, should we call out people that are racist and homophobic and everything, or should we not? Like, which is it? And shouldn't people hold you to the same standard you hold everyone else to? All right, so let's continue on with the video. This is when Ethan takes a caller and things get really awkward. They're already insanely awkward. They get even worse. Like, whenever he takes a caller that is trying to explain how Ethan screwed up or said something wrong or whatever, things get so much worse. I don't know how they haven't realized this yet.
Okay, we have a call about the top-bottom stereotype. Hey, Matt.
Oh,
so, Matt,
wow.
what have I got wrong here?
I know often you feel inclined to describe someone where you think they might be a bottom. And I think that that's often a misconception, that, like, bottoms may be passive or the
Well, I just mean that he likes
partner.
I just mean that he likes to take it up the butt.
But how can you know that about someone?
Well, that was just
by
a theory about because he wears diapers. It's just a theory.
No, there have been times. I think one that comes to mind was maybe Jordan Peterson, that you described as probably being someone that would be a bottom. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But, like, I've heard you at times maybe say, like, oh, this is someone that might be a bottom. You can't always tell, like, who's the top, who's the bottom.
So do you find it offensive if I say, by being like, oh, he's probably a bottom? Is that the problem?
Absolutely.
It's offensive.
Because the gay men already, you have to deal with certain assumptions about femininity and masculinity.
I mean, it is funny though. I don't know. I think the problem is that the term power bottom is very funny to me. Sometimes, these alpha men give power bottom vibes. I think maybe the joke is the dichotomy of, like, their persona of ultra masculinity, but then, like, the joke being that they're a power bottom.
How does he not realize that that's offensive and people in your audience are going to be upset by that? It's crazy. It's crazy that this guy is, like, almost 40 and he has 2 kids and this is supposed to be one of the, like, wokest people on the internet. And this is the kind of shit he says. And this is a prime example of what I was talking about earlier, how Ethan wants to call everyone else out for doing something wrong. And then he does the exact same thing or something very similar. And he thinks he can get away with it. And he thinks if his fans are upset by it, then they're just too sensitive and they need to get over it. Like, here's a clip from a stream with Ethan, Hassan, and Aiden Ross. And Ethan calls out Aiden because Aiden does this shtick where him and his friends act like they're gay with each other, you know, and they act like they're into each other. And Ethan's like, don't you think that's homophobic? And he kind of puts him on the spot and makes him explain himself. So Ethan's doing this stuff to other people just because he knows it makes him look like a good person and he can virtue signal, and then people will give him some slack in the future when he screws up. Like right here, he's criticizing this kid who's like 20 or 21 and he's a young streamer, so I'm sure he's going to screw up once in a while. He's going to say some things that are offensive and do some offensive shit. Ethan, he's like 40 years old and he's doing more homophobic stuff than this kid. And he has the audacity to call this kid out and put him on the spot. Like, this stream wasn't even about this, and he just brought it up. Like, and he asked him multiple times here about it.
But you also have another joke where you kind of like, the joke is that like you're sus or that you're like hitting on people and pretending to be gay.
Yeah,
Do you think that is homophobic?
Of course,
though?
that's
So let me ask you this. If you've got like a dude there and then you start to pretend like you're hitting on him, so what is the joke?
well, no, there's no joke. I would just say it's like,
So what's
Yeah.
the joke though? What's funny about it?
Oh no.
nah, I mean, I wouldn't like. All right, so back in high school,
Like, how the hell does Ethan have the audacity to call this kid out? Like, this is the dumbest shit ever. Are you serious? You look like a fucking idiot here. Like, who could defend this? I'm sorry if you're an H3 fan and you're listening to this, but he does not care about these issues as much as you think he does. I mean, he obviously cares, but this much, like, he's just trying to embarrass this kid and he's trying to virtue signal. He's not doing this for any right reason. Like, if you asked him why you think it's funny that Jordan Peterson wants to take a dick in the ass, he would have the same response as this kid. He wouldn't know what to say. And he's supposed to be a mature adult here, and he's supposed to be like the police of the internet. I mean, he asked this kid the same question 3 different times to try to embarrass him, and he's just doing it because he wants to make people think that he's a good person. He wants to feel like a good person, and now people will be like, oh my god, I'm so happy he stuck up for the LGBTQ plus community. But then he goes on his podcast and does this shit.
I think the ascription of like throwing out that someone is just a bottom, like because it just ascribing certain roles to people. That's all I'm asking for is just be a little more conscious of it.
So would you consider yourself a top or a bottom, or you don't do that the labels?
And I mean this with all peace and love and with respect, Ethan. It's none of your business.
But you have a preference one way or the other?
But that's another dangerous assumption too.
Can I
because a lot
guess?
of gay men don't.
You tell me if it's right, if I guess right?
No.
You know what? I'm not going to get into it, Matt. But we all know which one you prefer. It's
But as long as you understand where I'm coming from on this.
To be honest, I don't really.
See, this guy has no right to talk about anyone else being homophobic. Like, imagine Ethan reacting to himself here. If, like, this were somebody else doing this, you know? Take, like, Logan Paul and put him in the position Ethan's in right now. Logan Paul, one of his fans calls in. He's like, are you a top or a bottom? And him and his co-hosts are all laughing and everything. He's like, oh, we know which one you are. Yeah, we could tell. Like, if Ethan were watching that clip, he'd be tearing him apart. He'd be like, this is the most homophobic thing I've ever seen. What a piece of shit. This guy's an asshole. Nobody should support him. But when Ethan does this, he defends it. Him and his producer later on, as you'll see here, they flip out at the fans that are trying to call Ethan homophobic.
Okay,
To be on the
what do you
bottom
think
is
the
to
power
give.
bottom
It's
is?
to give. You know, it's a gracious thing to give and to receive like that.
Power bottom is a bottom who is just the more active bottom.
Oh, okay, I see. So they'll
do you
ride it.
think?
They can ride. A power bottom will ride it, where a regular bottom will
And they'll
just
be-
kind of lay there. So the power bottom is someone who rides enthusiastically. You don't need diapers
I'm
or
also-
anything, right? But like, if you are a regular receiver of anal sex, and I'm not saying you are, I don't know. But if you were, does the poop pass like any differently from before? Is it all normal functions? Like I get it doesn't leak out, but I wonder if it just comes out a little different. If you're on the bottom,
really
it doesn't
know.
mean you're like a beta. You could be alpha and also still be on the bottom. Especially if you're a power
Right,
bottom.
but
'Cause you
just-
ride that
but-
shit.
because
Like
it's
theoretically,
about you.
Jordan Peterson, if he was a power bottom, he could still be alpha. Because he rides it with gusto.
He'd
and
ride it
grace.
in a vengeful way. So yes, I think that'd be alpha. Yeah.
People are saying I'm Bruno of the gay community. I think we need an alpha bottom. I think we need more distinctions. We need alpha bottom and beta bottoms. More distinctions. So who is gay?
Didn't that make you gay?
Does it make you gay?
God, he does not know when to stop talking. And I feel like when he realizes that people think he should stop talking, it makes him want to talk about it even more. Like if he reads in the chat that people are like, oh, you're too homophobic, like you gotta stop saying these things, he just like, oh, these people are too sensitive, I'm gonna say it even more. And in this next part here, this is when they finally start to really go in on the fans, because the fans are obviously calling him out and saying like, dude, you took things too far, this is homophobic. And now they just let him have it.
Apologies to whatever his name was. Apparently I was homophobic to him. But whatever. What can you do? People say it was gross and disappointing. Saying you can guess if Matt is a power bottom by his voice is so gross. But I was right. That was the point. Wasn't I? He admitted.
Yeah, of course you were right. And honestly, just so over these fucking people. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. It's a
funny.
fucking entertaining show. Shut the fuck up.
Someone says, I don't know what's up.
So disappointing.
Someone said,
Grow up. Jesus fucking Christ.
God, these people are so stupid. How do you not realize that they are just doing to you what you do to other people? Like, you guys just react to other podcasts and other creators doing things that are wrong, and you called out. They're doing the same thing to you now. Like, they're just trying to hold you to the standard you're holding everyone else at. And then you're just like, oh, you're too sensitive. You're too this. You do that. You guys are too. You're the one who's starting this mess. Like, why do you think these people are watching you? Because they like what you're talking about. They like that you're calling people out. So they're going to want to do that too. And also, if this podcast wants to be so pro LGBTQ and so friendly with the community and everything, you're probably not going to want to say this stuff. Like, these people are probably giving you good advice. Like, if they're watching this podcast and they want to support it and they're paying customers and everything, they're buying all your merch and everything, they don't want the person they're watching saying a bunch of homophobic shit. It's not that confusing, and it's pretty insulting to the people that are paying for this. Like, if these are paying members and people that are buying the merch and they subscribe and they watch every episode and they're so dedicated to it, and then you're just like, shut up, stop watching, you people are just way too sensitive. Whenever they give you some feedback or voice their opinion on something, then it's pretty insulting and it's a dick move, especially when you do something this bad. Like, if you're somebody that watches this podcast regularly and you see your favorite creator saying homophobic stuff, you're going to want him to do better. But it sounds like Ethan and his producer don't give a shit what they think.
I don't know what's up with Ethan today, but something's off. Bad vibes this episode.
Shut the fuck up. Unsubscribe. Go away. Jesus Christ.
Someone said, it sometimes feels like Ethan thinks LGBTQ plus people are exotic or something. It's super uncomfy. Yeah, I think y'all need to fucking... Do you think it's hard for a straight person to understand how it feels to always have people define you by how you prefer sex? Is that a valid criticism?
No, I'm so fucking frustrated with these people.
Get the fuck out!
So wait,
Shut the
what was
fuck
I?
up.
Where did I even? Do you think some of y'all are way too fucking sensitive
You know-
for the show? To be totally honest, like people in this thread who are saying they're grossed out and whatever. I think you're really. I think this with peace and love, you might be too sensitive to watch this show. If you're watching this show and you're perpetually offended by things I'm saying, you may want to just stop watching. Like, genuinely. Like, does get annoying with some of y'all getting offended all the time. Come on, you talking about power bottoms is like me asking Ela if she likes it in the front or back. Does she ride your cock, or like you pounding her?
It's hilarious that he's telling his fans that are giving him tons of money. Like, these people, they're paying monthly and then they're buying Teddy Fresh, which is ridiculously expensive. He's telling these people to just stop watching because they're too sensitive. It's crazy telling your fans not to watch because you're homophobic, basically. Like, why does he want to talk about this stuff so badly? Like, it's pretty easy to just avoid the topic. Or when you're talking about it, just be a little careful, like most people are. Like any big creator, when they're talking about a subject like this, they're going to be way more careful than Ethan was. So I guess after they all yelled at the fans and everything, it seemed like they were just sticking to it, doubling down, being like, no, we didn't do anything wrong. You guys are way too sensitive. I mean, they were pretty aggressive about it. Like, usually they aren't this aggressive, like telling people to fuck off and shut the fuck up and everything. It sounded like they're really sticking to their guns and not apologizing. But then Ethan came out with this tweet and he said, "To my LGBTQ plus fans, I'm so sorry for the comments on today's show. The sexualization of gay men and the grouping of tops and bottoms is a stereotype that I will be trying to unlearn. Apologies to the caller too, who I shouldn't have pressed inappropriately. Hope you guys know I always mean well." Yeah, so I just don't think this is a genuine apology. Obviously his fans are gonna love it and they're gonna be like, yeah, we understand, you can't win, like people will be upset by anything, blah blah blah. But it's just crazy to go from like flipping out at your fans, be like, no, we didn't do anything wrong, fuck this, fuck you, or whatever, to like apologizing and everything. Like, why do you think he's apologizing? It's not because all of a sudden he realized that he was finally being homophobic. I mean, he's been saying this stuff for a year now. He's been making this joke about how people are bottoms or whatever. And on that podcast, he was very serious and he's like really sticking to what he believes. And they're doubling down with the caller and the fans and everything. And they were not changing their opinion. But then magically afterwards, it's like, oh, all of a sudden, somehow we all realized it. Even though like a few hours ago, you were doing the show and you were all on the same page and you thought there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. Like, he only apologized because so many people were upset by this, and it probably got to a point where he had to apologize. I mean, nobody changes this quickly in one day. I mean, on that podcast, he made it very clear that he does not think it's offensive what he was saying, and he doesn't see any problem with it. I mean, that caller called him, he explained everything, and he still thought that he was right, and he didn't think anything he said was offensive, and he said some even more inappropriate stuff to his fan. So I just find it hard to believe that all of a sudden he's like, oh my god, now I realize I'm sorry. Like, why didn't you say that when your fans were checking you after that guy called in? Like, you had a great opportunity there. Instead, you just got pissed at them. So let's check out some of the responses to this tweet and what some other people had to say about the episode, because one of Ethan's biggest fans, this guy, Adam McIntyre, he like covers H3 drama and he's always pro H3. Like, he's obsessed with him, and he still is. But he put out this tweet and he said, "Listen, I'm all for bullying James Charles. I love it, but can we do it in a way that isn't derogatory towards gay men and the offensive opinions about them already pushed? Newest H3 podcast has so many homophobic undertones." But then, of course, right when Ethan posts his apology, he quote tweets it with this heart. Like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, what the hell is this? Like, that quickly, like, boom, just some bullshit Twitter apology and I'm good. Alright, so here are some of the comments under Ethan's tweet. This person said, "Whoa, very different energy than when you and Dan told a viewer to fuck off when they called you out." Another person said, "I wish that Dan would stop telling viewers to fuck off whenever they share a view on what's happening that he doesn't agree with. It's so painful to watch and it makes me so sad, especially when all of us pay for the privilege to use the chat and send supers." And here's another one. Somebody said, "Dan telling us to shut the fuck up and unsubscribe because we're too easily offended with something I won't easily forget. Dan's wish was granted. Follower count dropped by 10,000. Now Ethan is issuing an apology." Yeah, like, do you want your fans to actually leave? It just makes no sense. This podcast is out of control. It's a complete mess. They're really going to have to change something. They're either going to have to go like full PC and not doing anything edgy, or just not even pay attention to the fans and not give a shit what anybody thinks and just do whatever the hell you want. So here's another tweet kind of defending Ethan. Somebody said, "Jesus Christ, Ethan can't win. If he says I'm sorry, half of the room says he is giving to the mob. The other half says it's just an excuse. It seems like the only way to please everyone is to just be perfect. No mistakes and no growth. No room for comedy, just perfection." And then a comment says, "Isn't that the same treatment you H3 fans give Joe Rogan? Don't cry now. You made this bed." And that's exactly right. This is the way Ethan treats everyone else. Like, this whole tweet that the first guy said, that's the way Ethan treats everyone else. There's no excuses. You have to please everyone. You have to be perfect. No mistakes, no growth. When Ethan's calling everyone else out, that's kind of how he acts. So I mean, he has to deal with this now. This is his fan base. You can't attract this kind of fan base and then be like, oh no, I don't want this, unsubscribe. Like, you're the one who got these people. Like, why do you think they're listening to you? And I really think you got to decide if you want to have a really woke PC crowd, or you want to go for a really edgy comedy show where you don't want to listen to anybody who's offended or anything. You just want to do whatever you want and say whatever you want, and you don't care what people think. Like, you got to pick one or the other, really. You can't be stuck in the middle, because that's what's going on here, and it's obviously not fun. It doesn't seem like he's having a good time. It seems like every show they're pissed off at somebody or something. So let's just wait and see what happens. He should be talking about it on his podcast soon, I'm sure, and it should be good. Alright, so that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button, leave me a comment, then hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video.